It's a visit that the world is keeping a close eye on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's maiden trip to China isn't just a new chapter in India's diplomacy with its neighbour. Given the tumultuous past, it is a relationship that can potentially rewrite the world order. Relations are still strained, and so no substantive developments are expected on the long-standing border dispute. But trade is a major focus of this visit, and India and China are expected to sign 20 business deals worth about $10 billion.
China is India's biggest trading partner, with business of over $70 billion between the two of them till last year. But the trade deficit has spiraled from just $1 billion in 2002 to more than $38 billion in 2014 against India's advantage. And setting that right will be high on Mr. Modi's agenda. But soft diplomacy is being played out at its best, so a visit to the Terracota Museum or the pagoda or a walk at the Buddhist monastery. China is clearly going all out to wow its visitor.
A firm handshake with smiles ahead of the bilateral talks between Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The Prime Minister chose Xi's hometown Xi'an as his first stop, and the Chinese President reciprocated the gesture by receiving him here, outside Beijing. A meet which lasted for 90 minutes has set the tone for Prime Minister Modi's remaining China tour, with talks extending beyond the trade issues. But the big question remains if there would be substantial steps taken beyond the talks.
Political issues were discussed, boundary issues were discussed, including peace and tranquility on the border. Trans-border rivers was discussed. On the economic side, the trade deficit and the investment climate.
The world is keenly watching the new Sino-India equation. The US, which has been warming up to India, is looking at the emerging ties between China and India. Because behind the closed doors, the focus is set to be more on trade and economic ties. The dragon diplomacy has perhaps just begun. Bureau Report, ET Now.
Let's take you live to Beijing, where Prime Minister Modi has just arrived just a short while ago. We're getting live footage of Prime Minister Modi's arrival at Beijing. That's Prime Minister Modi arriving at Beijing, being received there by a host of dignitaries in Beijing. Remember, he arrived in China earlier today. He had a round of bilateral talks with Xi Jinping as well, but he's now arrived to the capital city of Beijing. Those are live visuals that you can see of Prime Minister Modi arriving in Beijing.
Oh yes, and there's plenty that's in store, including lots of big business.
That's right, Supriya. In fact, we've got a special report here on all that happened in a bid to deepen Sino-India cultural ties. Prime Minister Modi not only invoked Buddha, but also visited Terracota Warriors Museum and a temple there as well. What's the significance of this soft diplomacy? Here's a special report.
Looking at these historic relics, Prime Minister Narendra Modi starting his 3-day China tour with a short visit to the Terracota Army Museum in Xi'an. The clay warriors and horses date back to China's first empire and were excavated in the 20th century and are a major tourist spot for its largest pottery group finding. His next stop was this Buddhist temple, tucked in Xi'an province. As the Prime Minister toured the temple premises, there was a larger message of India-China cultural connect. Prime Minister's visit to the pagoda is significant. The big Wild Goose Pagoda was first built in the year 652 AD during the reign of the Tang dynasty. It was built to house Sanskrit Buddhist scriptures that were brought to China from India by the prominent Chinese Buddhist scholar. Roaming around the Buddhist monastery, PM sending signals of soft diplomacy. But will the softer diplomacy work to bring the harder border dispute issues on the discussion table during Modi's China visit? Bureau Report, ET Now.